Saturday afternoon at my parents' place outside Chicago. Smoke from the grill, paper plates, yelling kids, the whole suburban postcard. My parents had gathered all the grandkids at their lake house. Grandma and Grandpa stood there like benevolent Santa clones, handing out tickets to Dreamland Park. You know, that giant amusement park every kid in the Midwest begs to visit at least once. It was one of those sickly sweet scenes. Each kid got a shiny ticket. Jumping, squealing, "Thank you, Grandma!" The works. Then they got to my two, and my father, with a straight face, said, "Oh, Anna, I'm sorry. We ran out of money." I watched him say it while still holding a little fan of tickets. My kids, 8-year-old Lizzie and 6-year-old Mikey, just froze. Mouths already stretching into smiles that never got a chance to show up. I blinked. "Okay," I said slowly. "Then I'll buy tickets myself." My sister Olivia actually laughed, out loud. "You're the only outsider here," she smirked. "My kids and yours don't really go together." Right after that, they started handing the extra tickets to the neighbors' kids. Right there, in front of mine. So yeah, I grabbed my 2 sobbing kids, buckled them into their booster seats, and drove away. And later, I did something my family is still choking on. My name is Anna. If you'd told me 4 years ago that my own family would treat my kids like some contagious disease, I'd have told you to lay off the drama. And yet there I was, on my parents' lawn outside Chicago, watching my daughter and son stand there as the only grandkids without tickets. Standard, painfully boring backstory. 2.5 years before that, I divorced my husband Eric. He'd been having an affair with his office manager for 2 years. At home, he'd humiliate me in front of the kids, like it was a hobby. But in my parents' eyes, I was the one who destroyed such a beautiful family. At first, it showed up as little things. New Year's. My nephews got new iPhones. My kids got plain envelopes with a $5 bill in each. Literally 5. I pretended not to notice. Kids are small, I told myself. They don't count money yet. Then it got worse. My brother Alex's twins got invited to every outing, every party, every family trip. Mine were forgotten. Funny how selective group chats can be. And the Dreamland Park stunt? That was no longer little things. That was full-blown, weaponized cruelty. That night, after the ticket scene, I put my kids to bed, told them some BS story about us going on our own super vacation soon, and sat down with my laptop. And here's the funny part. While my whole family treated me like a broke, pathetic single mom who should be grateful for leftovers, I'd actually done pretty well. After the divorce, I'd built my own event planning business. At first, it was brutal. I was working 3 jobs, front desk admin during the day, barista in the evenings, hostess on weekends. Lizzie cried herself to sleep almost every night. "Why did Daddy leave?" she'd whisper. And I'd smile, chug 3 mugs of coffee, and say, "Because grown-ups sometimes make bad choices, honey. But I'm here. We'll be okay." Eventually, some friends asked me to organize a birthday party, then another. Then someone hired me for a wedding, for the kind of price that made my hands shake when I signed the contract. A year later, I'd registered an LLC, was doing corporate events, networking through the local Chamber of Commerce, speaking at small business forums. While they still pictured me wandering through basement shifts, I was negotiating venue contracts and tasting menus. And every single time my family did something cruel, I wrote it down. It actually started with Mikey's 5th birthday. I'd booked the clubhouse in our condo complex, hired a Spider-Man performer, bought a cake with so much frosting it should have come with a health warning. I was proud. It wasn't luxury, but it was bright, fun, and mine. Olivia showed up with her whole brood, took one look around, and spent the entire party whining. "So modest," she sighed. "Not like ours." When the time came to sing to Mikey and cut the cake, she leaned down to her kids and hissed, "Quiet! Don't make a big deal out of this." Mikey stood there in his little Spider-Man costume, completely confused why his own birthday felt like a wake. That night, I created a folder on my laptop called Evidence. Screenshots of family chats, photos, videos, notes with dates and times. I thought I was doing it just to stay sane. Had no idea it would one day become Exhibit A. From then on, it was a pattern. My kids got sat at the kids' table every holiday, while the other grandkids drifted freely between adults and dessert platters. In group photos, my two were shoved to the edges, or forgotten completely. New Year's again. My nephews got the latest gadgets. Mine got gift cards to the toy store. Pick something yourselves, while their cousins unboxed electronics. My brother, by the way, is a subtle kind of jerk. He'd drop little jokes about single moms who can't keep a man in front of my kids, then grin and say, "Relax, I'm only joking." His wife Megan was worse. A snake in designer heels. Their daughter Kayla was always held up as so advanced, clearly from a full family. Meanwhile, my dad, the same one who taught me how to ride a bike, now looked at me like I'd tracked something in on his carpet. My mom, who used to bake cookies with Lizzie, suddenly obsessed over disinfecting the house every time we visited. Then came the New Year's 2 years before the ticket fiasco. The big one. They handed out presents. My kids' pile was about a third of everyone else's. I told myself to breathe. It was just stuff. Then Olivia pulled out Samsung tablets. One for every grandchild. Except mine. Lizzie, in the softest little voice, asked, "What about me?" Olivia laughed. "These are for kids who have real internet at home. Not like you." Translation: We're poor, trashy, not worthy, and she made sure the entire room heard it. That night, I put $4,000 on a credit card. I bought my kids tablets. I upgraded our place to fiber internet. I spent months after that living on rice, beans, and instant noodles to pay it off. And you know what? That decision is what saved me. Because I realized, if I could grind that hard for my kids, I could grind hard for us too. I started taking bigger contracts, raised my prices, organized a $30,000 wedding, and pulled it off perfectly. My mom heard and, to her credit, said, "Good for you, honey," and quickly changed the subject. My sister rolled her eyes when I mentioned I was saving for a condo. "Dreaming doesn't cost anything," she snorted. While they were busy dismissing me as a failure, I was building a business. They just didn't stop tormenting my kids. No birthday invitations. Forgotten school concerts. Family trips for everyone that somehow never included Lizzie and Mikey. And then there was Dreamland Park, the last straw. By the time the Dreamland tickets appeared, I already had a nice thick dossier. 35 documented episodes, dates, times, witnesses, screenshots of chats where Olivia called my kids "those two" and discussed how to see them less often. Statements from neighbors who watched my children be excluded again and again. It wasn't a family misunderstanding. It was a system. Things really snowballed after my Grandma Faye, passed. Faye deserves her own story. Everyone else saw a sweet old lady with lemon cookies. I knew the woman who, in the early 1960s, walked out on an abusive husband with a small child on her hip after he hit their toddler so hard he died. She told me once, "He killed my child. I put our lives in one bag and left for my mother's. They all whispered behind my back. But I worked 3 jobs and bought my own apartment. Then I married your grandpa. He took Victor in like he was his own." She was a survivor. And a shark, in the best way. In the 90s, when everything was falling apart economically, she was buying apartments. "Crisis is just another word for opportunity, Anna," she'd say. "People sell for pennies, and later they regret it." By the time she was done, she had 3 rental apartments in decent areas, a little house out near the river, investments and savings, a collection of mid-century antiques, altogether about a little over $1 million. Her will said it would be split equally between 4 grandchildren, me, my sister Olivia, my brother Alex, our cousin Andrew from Seattle, around $275,000 each. Not life-changing billionaire money, but not exactly pocket change either. But Grandma Faye was nobody's fool. She'd watched how my family treated me after the divorce. She saw who hugged my kids and who made faces, so she added a clause. In her will, she wrote that any heir who is found to be cruel toward the children of another heir could be declared an unworthy heir under our state's probate code. Their share would be taken away and added to the share of the heir whose children they'd hurt. Legally airtight. And yes, she made it very specific. There had to be proof. Photos, videos, messages, a psychologist's report on the harm caused, attempts to resolve things peacefully. She even had our estate attorney, Marion Cole, help polish the wording so no one could wiggle out in court. I knew about that clause. I was also the executor. Anna is responsible and has a degree in economics, Grandma Faye told Marion. I kept my mouth shut. I honestly hoped I'd never have to use it. Then Faye died. I found her one morning in March. I'd come over, like always, to make her breakfast and hand her meds. She looked like she'd just fallen asleep. The funeral at church was nice. Candles, hymns, a pastor with a very moving voice. At the repast afterward, held in a community center banquet hall, all 4 grandkids spoke. I told stories about baking her lemon cookies. Olivia talked about summers at the lake house. For a couple of days, Faye somehow managed to make us look like a normal family. I, idiot that I am, thought, maybe this is it. Maybe a death in the family changes people. Maybe they'll rethink things. 2 weeks later, we met at Marion Cole's office for the reading of the will. She laid everything out clearly. Appraisals on the properties would take about a month. Cashing out some investments, maybe 2 paperwork with the county recorder's office, another 3 or 4. All in all, up to a year. And as executor, I'd be running the show. At my request, Marion said nothing about the unworthy heir clause. I wanted to see what my family would do when no one was watching them. Spoiler, they failed in record time. In fact, the first red flag had already popped up back at the funeral lunch itself. I'd set up tables, flowers, photo albums of Grandma's life. Lizzie and Mikey adored their great-grandma. They were quiet, pale, and clearly heartbroken. They wandered over to the table where Olivia was showing old photos to Grandma's friends. Lizzie leaned in to look. Olivia swatted her away like she was shooing a puppy. "This is grown-up talk. Go find something to do." Something to do turned out to be sitting in the corner, watching their cousins run around like they owned the place. From there, things went downhill fast. Family dinners turned into a ritual of humiliation. My kids were treated like lepers. Separate table. Minimal conversation. Only talk to them when necessary. Naturally, the other kids followed the adults' lead and started ignoring Lizzie and Mikey too. By the time the Dreamland disaster happened, my evidence folder already contained 35 episodes, complete with dates, places, and witnesses. And then, when my kids started having nightmares and panic attacks, I did what any desperate mother does. I took them to a child psychologist. Her name was Dr. Helen. Solid woman, 20 years of experience. The kind of calm that makes kids breathe easier. She listened to everything. Watched my kids play. Ran her assessments. At the end, she steepled her fingers and said, "This is called emotional abuse through exclusion. Your relatives are punishing the children for your divorce." I drove them to her twice a week for 3 months. $150 a session. Money I absolutely did not have lying around. But Dr. Helen told me something important. Document everything, and take my written report with an official seal. You may need it. That's when I remembered Grandma Faye's clause, the lawyer, the conditions, the line about cruelty toward the children of another heir. I pulled Faye's papers out of my safe and reread them, and for the first time I thought, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe this is exactly what she wanted me to do. Faye hadn't just written a clause, she'd prepared for war. Toward the end, when her memory was already slipping, she'd started keeping a diary. Her aide helped her write when her hand shook too much. I found it when I was going through her things, pages and pages of dates and little, angry notes. New Year's. Lizzie sat at the kids' table. 3 empty seats at the adults' table. Mikey cried, Alex said sparklers are only for children from full families. Olivia told Kayla not to share toys with Lizzie. She has germs, she said. Dozens of entries. Detailed. About 10 months before she died, she'd called Marion again. 2 hours they spent refining the language of that clause. How to define abuse. What counts as proof. How to apply it so no one could claim it was just hurt feelings. Everything by the book. No loopholes. And I just kept collecting data. Alex's wedding anniversary party, 8 months before Dreamland. Megan called me. You have to come! It's a family celebration! All the kids will be there! I bought Lizzie a sparkly dress and Mikey a little suit with a bow tie. We showed up, and it was immediately obvious. We were the only ones who hadn't been included in the group styling session. All the other kids were in matching outfits, obviously planned weeks in advance. Mine looked like 2 dandelions in a rose garden. Then a professional photographer arrived. He started setting up family portraits. Grandparents in the center, grandkids around them, like a catalog cover. My 2 sat in the corner, picking at the tablecloth. Can we get mine in a shot too? I asked. Alex, Mr. Generous, said, Right now we're doing just the closest family. Maybe later we'll take a couple of big group shots. Later, in our family, means never. The photographer left without ever pointing his camera at my kids. Another time, at his twins' birthday, his twins threw Mikey's favorite toy car into the pool while the adults laughed. When I asked Alex to intervene, he said, Oh, come on, kids are kids. They'll make up. Sure. Kids are kids. Except mine, apparently. After the Dreamland ticket stunt, I spent a week spreading papers across my kitchen table, building a timeline, sorting Dr. Helen's report, printing screenshots. And then it hit me. I'm an event planner. I've staged surprise proposals on rooftops, anniversaries in estates, corporate galas for executives who think budget is a swear word. Why not stage an event my family would never forget? An event Faye would have thoroughly enjoyed. So I booked a place called Riverside Estate, a country club about 40 minutes outside Chicago, respectable, tasteful, not too flashy, with a private room for 50 people and no easy escape routes. I hired a string quartet from the Regional Symphony Orchestra. 2 violins, a viola, a cello. I told them, whatever happens, you keep playing. If a fight breaks out, you just switch to Mozart and pretend you've seen worse. Paid them double for the trouble. I called my favorite photographer, Julia, a woman I'd done at least 10 weddings with. I need real emotions, I told her. Reactions, like when a bride throws her bouquet. So, a surprise party? She asked. Something like that, I said. Only instead of a bouquet, it'll be a bomb. The menu? I designed it with obscene precision. Every one of Grandma Faye's signature dishes. That 7-layer salad she made every New Year's, her lemon cookies. I practiced for a week to get the recipe just right. Pike and aspic, chicken patties, dried fruit compote. I wanted the taste of childhood to stick in their throats when the truth hit. For flowers, I ordered only white roses with baby's breath. Faye used to grow them at the lake house. A white rose is honesty and purity, she'd say. Lies kill it faster than frost. 50 bouquets, so the scent would fill the room. The invitations I had printed at the same place that does cards for embassy receptions. The Harlow Lane family invites you to honor the memory of Faye and witness her final gift to those she loved. Even I got goosebumps reading it back. Everyone RSVP'd within a week. My parents even called to thank me for organizing it. Olivia and her husband Scott were coming with all 3 kids. Alex and Megan were bringing their twins. Andrew promised to fly in from Seattle with his wife Natalie and their kids Chloe and Evan. 32 people in total, counting children. Everyone thought they were coming to discuss their inheritance. I knew I was about to burn every bridge in that room. I just didn't want my kids to watch. So I made a deal with my friend Maggie. She took them for the day, movie, trampoline park, pizza, sleepover. I told my kids I had an important work meeting. 3 days before the event, my mom called while I was paying the banquet deposit. Her voice sounded warm, almost like when I was little and had a fever. "Anna, I wanted to thank you," she said. "I know we've grown apart lately, but what you're doing for your grandmother's memory is beautiful. She would have been proud." I almost dropped the phone. "Thanks, Mom," I managed. "That means a lot. We'll all come together like one big family, just how she loved it," she said. "Maybe this will help us mend our relationship?" Something in my chest twisted. Was I going too far? Was this my chance to fix things? Peacefully? That night, I tucked the kids in. Mikey hugged me. "Mom, when are we going to Dreamland Park?" "Soon, buddy," I said. "I promise." From the other room, Lizzie yelled, "Mom, can I wear my unicorn dress tomorrow? You're going to Aunt Maggie's, honey." "What if Grandma and Grandpa stop by?" I turned off the light and stood in the hallway for a while, letting the guilt wash over me and then drain away. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about protection. The morning of the event, I woke up at 5. My stomach was twisted into a knot, but my head felt clear. I spent 2 hours choosing what to wear and ended up in the dress Grandma Faye had given me for my college graduation. "In this, you look like a lady who knows her worth," she'd said. I put on the emerald necklace she'd left me, low heels so I could stand my ground, literally, and makeup just sharp enough to remind myself I was no longer the scared girl in the corner. At 10, I sent Lizzie and Mikey off with Maggie. "Be good. Listen to Aunt Maggie," I told them. Lizzie squinted at me. "Mom, what's going on?" "Nothing," I said. "I just love you. Everything's going to be okay." I got to Riverside Estate at 1 in the afternoon. The event started at 4, plenty of time to check every detail. The coordinator, a young woman in a blazer, led me to the room. "Ms. Harlow Lane, everything looks exactly like on your list. Seating, menu, AV setup." Round tables with white linens, crystal glasses, polished silver. By the fireplace, a framed portrait of Grandma Faye surrounded by white roses. A small stage for the quartet. A microphone. Julia showed up next. She walked the room, checked the light, nodded. "Great space. What are we shooting? Anniversary? Gala?" "Technically a memorial," I said. "A very unusual one." At 3, the musicians arrived. Older guy on first violin, clearly seen it all. "We've prepared Bach, Mozart, Schubert," he said. "Anything else?" "Just one thing," I replied. "Whatever happens, you don't stop playing." He smiled. "We've played at politicians' funerals. Nothing rattles us anymore." We were about to test that theory. Andrew and his family were the first guests. They'd flown in that morning from Seattle. Natalie looked elegant in black, their kids dressed up like they were headed to a school recital. 10-year-old Chloe was chattering about her school play. 8-year-old Evan walked in reading a book. Andrew hugged me like an actual brother. "Anna, you did an amazing job setting this up. Must have been a lot of work." "I'm just glad you came," I said. And I meant it. Andrew was the only one in the family who had never hurt my kids. At earlier gatherings, he'd played Battleship with Mikey and braided Lizzie's hair. The only adult who didn't treat them like contagion. I felt bad he was about to get caught in the crossfire. My parents showed up next. Dad wore his formal suit, the one he dusted off once a year. Mom had clearly bought a new dress for the occasion. "Anna!" She tried to hug me. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hug back either. "It's all so beautiful," she said. "Faye would have loved it." "I hope so," I said, my voice dry. Dad coughed. "The lawyer will be here, right?" "She will," I said. "Help yourselves to the appetizers." Alex and Megan arrived with their twins right on time. The boys looked like mini Alex clones, same serious faces, same slouch. Megan was in yet another designer dress, hair styled to within an inch of its life. Finally, Olivia and Scott made their entrance, like they were walking a red carpet. Kayla glided in first in a dress that probably cost as much as my monthly rent 3 years ago. Danny and Dylan trudged behind, already glued to their phones in spirit, if not in fact yet. Olivia wore Dior or something equally overpriced. I'm not great with brands, but I know expensive when I see it. She swept her gaze over the room like a queen inspecting her court. How cute, she said. Almost like a real high-profile reception. Almost. Everyone settled. The waiters served appetizers. The quartet began to play Bach. Perfect backdrop. I stood by the fireplace, exactly where I'd planned. I started from far away. I talked about Faye, how strong she'd been, how much she'd loved us, how she'd survived more than most of us could imagine. I shared funny stories, tender ones. People relaxed. They smiled. They nodded. For 20 minutes, we were almost a family again. Alex was already mentally spending his share. I could see it in his eyes. Olivia was whispering to Scott, probably about renovations to the lake house. Then I said, I'd like everyone's attention for something important. The room fell quiet. Eyes brightened. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. As you know, I began, hoping my voice wouldn't shake. Grandma Faye's estate has been settled. She left very specific instructions. Silence. The total value of her assets is around a little over $1 million. According to the will, it was to be split equally between the 4 grandchildren. I saw Olivia's eyes light up. Roughly $275,000. A very nice addition to her curated life. But, I continued, pausing, Grandma included a special condition. I opened the folder in my hands, pulled out the papers. To my surprise, my hands were steady. I'll quote, I said. Any heir who is found to have been cruel to the children of another heir is to be declared unworthy under state probate law. Their share is to be redistributed among the remaining heirs. Graveyard silence. The color drained from Olivia's face. Alex froze with his champagne glass halfway to his lips. For the past 3 years, I went on, I've been collecting proof of systematic emotional abuse toward my children. Photos, videos, messages, witness statements, and a detailed report from a licensed child psychologist. My father jumped up like he'd sat on a live wire. Anna, what nonsense is this? We love Lizzie and Mikey. Love? I asked. I took out my phone. Last Saturday, at your lake house, you looked my 8-year-old daughter in the eye and told her there weren't enough tickets to Dreamland Park. Then, minutes later, you handed the leftover tickets to the neighbor's kids, in front of her. Dad's face turned red. That was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated. Okay, here's another one. I swiped. New Year's, 2 years ago. Your grandkids are opening presents. My kids' pile is a third the size of the others. Then Olivia hands out tablets to every child except mine. I hit play. The video showed Lizzie's small voice. What about me? And Olivia laughing. These are for kids with real internet at home, not like you. Olivia's face went from red to chalk. That's taken out of context, she blurted. Great, I said. Here's more context. I read dates out loud, showed screenshots, photos of my kids pushed to the edge of group shots, notes from Dr. Helen about emotional neglect, manufactured sense of rejection, and long-term trauma risk. You're all sitting here pretending you don't know what I'm talking about, I said. So let me remind you. Alex's son's birthday. Your twins threw Mikey's toy car into the pool while he cried. The adults laughed. When I asked you to say something, you told me, kids are kids. They'll make up. That's your voice on this video, I added, hitting play. His laughter filled the room. The quartet quietly switched from Bach to Mozart, the cheerful melody clashing weirdly with the atmosphere. My mother finally spoke, her voice soft and shaky. Anna, why are you doing this? We're family. Family? I laughed once. Where was this family when my kids cried themselves to sleep? When they were humiliated and excluded over and over? You chose my cheating husband over your own daughter, and now you're surprised there are consequences? Dad tried to take back control. We can talk about this. We can find a compromise. Too late. I said. I straightened. The probate case was closed 6 months ago. I was waiting for the right moment to share the outcome. Olivia and Alex, I said clearly, have been declared unworthy heirs. Their shares have been annulled. Olivia shot to her feet so fast she knocked over her glass. Red wine spilled over the white tablecloth like something from a movie. "You can't do this," she gasped. "Over childish grudges?" "I'm not taking anything away," I replied. "Grandma Fay put these rules in place, and these are not childish grudges. This is documented psychological abuse." I turned to Andrew. "Your $275,000 is safe," I told him. "You've always treated my kids with kindness." Then I looked back at Olivia and Alex. "With the redistribution, my share now comes out to a bit over $800,000. "You planned this!" Olivia shrieked. "You manipulated Grandma! You turned her against us!" "No," I said. "Grandma saw everything. Here's her diary." I held up the notebook. "New Year's," I read. "Lizzie was put at the kids' table while 3 seats at the adults' table stayed empty. Mikey cried. Alex said sparklers were only for kids from full families. Olivia told Kayla not to share toys with Lizzie because she has germs." Mom stared at the floor. "We can fix this," Dad insisted. "We'll apologize. We'll sit down, work something out." "The paperwork's already been filed," I said. "The money's already been moved. Marion processed everything." Alex slammed his fist on the table. "You stayed quiet for 6 months? You stayed quiet for 3 years, I shot back, "while you tortured my kids." Scott, Olivia's husband, stood up. Big man used to people jumping when he raised his voice. "So what now?" he demanded. "You're going to drag our name through the mud?" "Oh, I'm glad you asked," I said. "Next week, the local paper is publishing a piece about a new charitable foundation, the Fay Foundation, supporting children who've been psychologically abused within their own families. No names, of course, but I think a lot of people will recognize themselves." "You bitch!" Olivia hissed. "Careful," I said calmly. "The photographer is capturing everything." Only then did they notice Julia moving quietly around the room. No flash, just a professional camera documenting their faces. "You know what the saddest part is?" I asked, scanning the room. "This could have been avoided. Right up until last Saturday, I hoped you'd wake up. I prayed you wouldn't go through with publicly humiliating an 8-year-old girl just to show who's in charge. I asked myself, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I should talk to them. Try again." I closed the folder. "But you made your choice. You broke my kids. Grandma Fay saw it coming and built a system to protect them, even after she was gone." Then came the exodus. Olivia's kids bolted for the door first. Maybe kids just sense when the air gets toxic. Megan dragged Alex out by the sleeve. "We'll deal with this later," she snapped. "Let's go." Andrew came over while everyone else was scrambling. "Anna, I really didn't know it was this bad," he said quietly. "If I had, I would have stepped in." "I know," I said. "You're a good guy. Grandma knew it too." "If you want, I can give you some of my share, just to be fair," he added. "You don't owe me anything," I told him. "You earned it by not being cruel." My parents left last. Mom was crying silently. Dad looked 10 years older. "Anna," he said at the door, "what do we have to do for you to forgive us?" "First," I said, "actually admit what you did. Not sorry if you were hurt. Not we didn't mean it. Own it. Then write letters to my children. Real apologies. And give me time to decide whether I want you in our lives at all." "And if we do all that?" he asked. "We'll see," I said. "Start by stopping calling yourselves the victims." They left. The quartet finished a mournful Chopin piece. Julia packed up her gear. I stood alone in the room that smelled like roses and burned bridges, and felt relief. On the drive home, my phone exploded with notifications. I didn't read a single one. Maggie was on the floor playing board games with the kids when I walked in. They ran to hug me, yelling about pizza and cartoons and how Aunt Maggie was the coolest. "Can we go back tomorrow?" Mikey asked. "You can do anything you want," I said. "We're free." Later that night, I told Maggie everything. "Damn," she whistled. "That was brutal and kind of cinematic. They're definitely going to sue." "Let them," I shrugged. "The paperwork's ironclad. Grandma made sure of it." Sure enough, a week later, Olivia filed a lawsuit. The judge read the will, reviewed the evidence, read Dr. Helen's report. He dismissed the claim. The will stood. Final judgment. Alex tried a different angle. He sent texts, left voicemails, even showed up at my door. "Anna, we didn't mean it like that," he said through the door. "Kids fight. Families fight. Let's just forget it and start over." I stayed silent. What do you even say to someone who honestly doesn't understand what they've done? 3 months later, I got another knock on the door. This time it was Eric, my ex-husband, in a suit, with a tie, and flowers, of all things. "Anna, can we talk?" he asked. "If it's about child support, I'm not renegotiating," I replied. "It's not that," he said. "I heard about your family, the court, everything." I let him in, made tea. We sat at the kitchen table like awkward co-workers. "I never asked them to take my side," he began. "I didn't tell them to treat you that way." "But you didn't stop them either," I said. He dropped his eyes. "At first, it flattered me," he admitted. "I was an idiot, a hurt idiot." We sat in silence for a moment. "Lizzie and Mikey suffered because of me," he said quietly. "Because of our divorce. I get that now. I want to fix what I can. Can we try to co-parent? Properly? No war. No tug-of-war over holidays. Maybe we can take them to Dreamland Park together sometime." I thought about it. Kids need their father. That's just reality. And if he really was changing... "We do it on my terms," I said, "with a new parenting agreement, in writing, through a lawyer." We sat down with an attorney, wrote out schedules, responsibilities, boundaries. And you know what? It worked. Eric didn't become Father of the Year, but he became a decent dad. He showed up. He stuck to the plan. He stopped using the kids as weapons. Without the constant stress and comparison, my kids changed. Lizzie joined a theater club and discovered she actually has talent. Mikey got into robotics and took second place in a citywide competition. And yes, we went to Dreamland Park. Just the 3 of us. No neighbors' kids, no grandparents, no competition over who deserved what. We rode every roller coaster, ate cotton candy, took photos with characters, came home exhausted and happy. The real magic, it turns out, isn't inheritance. It's not approval from family who treat your children like trash. It's your kids being safe and smiling and knowing they're wanted. Grandma Faye knew that, and she managed to protect us, even from the other side. So, what do you think? Did we go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.